Welcome to this Earnestly podcast. I'm your host, Ernest E.J. Christian, coming to you on the late Thursday night to drop on your podcast feeds on Friday morning. On the line, of course, welcome back to our good friend, radio personality of Fox Sports New Mexico, Steve Bortstein is here with us. Steve, what's up, bud?
I am well, my friend. How are you?
I'm always well, man. I'm blessed. I can't complain for the most part. And you ain't complain.
Then that's why you called me, so I can do the complaining for both of us.
Exactly. See, you get me already, man. All these pods you've done for the years, like, you get me now. You really do get me. I'm actually glad we got you on the show, man, because there's a lot I want to talk about with you today. I really didn't want to get into like a sports rabbit hole right now, but I guess I'll get your thoughts real quick on the NBA at large. You know, obviously a lot of things going on. As we're recording this right now, the draft, I think, is almost, if it's not over now, be over next hour. Obviously, you know, no surprises really in terms of the draft. Who's drafted 1, 2, and 3? Zion, John Morant, and RJ Barrett. I was just telling off the year before we got on here that I only cared about two things. The order of the drafts, well, three things. If there's a big trade, which didn't happen, really, nothing major, and the Heat, what they did. So that's all I cared about. Anything in the draft you want to say, I guess?
Well, I do want to address one trade, and it was the one that happened earlier in the week with Mike Conley going to Utah. I mean, that's a big move.
I think it is too.
I think for you, I mean, because look, we'll get into the Lakers just train wreck thing here in a minute, but didn't Utah kind of stamp themselves now? You look at that lineup, you look at that backcourt now. That's a team to look at right now. And I know we're going to talk about the Rockets, their drama, and we'll get into the Lakers and certainly the Rockets situations. But I mean, with the Hindenburg crashing up in Oakland, California last week, as far as the Golden State Warriors are concerned, didn't Utah put themselves in a position where they stay healthy, do the right things next season? I would think they're one of the favorites, and that might send shockwaves through the fine folks at Park Avenue in New York City, who the last thing they want is the prospect of a Western Conference final between Denver and Utah. But it's a possibility. No right-thinking person in their right mind in New York City is thinking to themselves, "Oh boy, I can't wait for a Nuggets Jazz Western Conference final." That should send Adam Silver into anaphylactic shock probably as we speak, but it's a real possibility.
Absolutely. And I think when that, the Hindenburg, you called it, when the injuries happen, honestly, I think many teams in the middle of the pack, especially like Utah, who are, by the way, were a playoff team anyway, regardless of this trade, spent blood in the water. And I think you can argue, and I said this yesterday, a couple of friends of mine discussing this trade, you can argue right now that might be the best starting five in the Western Conference.
No question. I mean, now we'll see what happens when Portland comes back at 100%. Jokic goes down. That changed everything for Portland, right? I mean, that ended effectively them, especially against Golden State. So he comes back healthy. That might be the best team there. But, there's no guarantees there's no guarantees of anything, obviously. But I just look at what I see from Utah, Denver. Obviously, we'll get to the Houston thing here in a second, but yeah. I would say Utah has to be considered in that spot right now.
Yeah, I mean, did they give a lot to get Conley? Yeah, I guess, but I'm also not one who's going to be mad about that, because at the end of the day, I'm probably one of the few people who actually values Mike Conley at more than most in the NBA community. I actually think he's a really, really good point guard. I think honestly, if you think about it, he's really a top 10 point guard in the league by virtue of production. And I think this move right now in the onset puts him as definitely a top 3 or 4 team in the Western Conference now. I mean, when you look at the Warriors, it's Steve's fascinating too, because the Warriors, the injuries to Durant and Clay. Like, isn't it amazing how these two things just changes the entire scope of how we look at the league next year? Like, LeBron James has got to get out of jail free card. Like, if LeBron, because I was saying when the year was over that LeBron has no chance of winning an NBA title, because even if the Lakers get better, he's going to get older and teams will get better. That his days of winning titles are over, and basically he's got afforded one more free chance to win a title, which is next year.
Well, and you know what? Let's talk about Golden State for a second. I mean, what they were able to accomplish, you know, with the injuries that started with Kevin Durant, and then obviously the cataclysmic injury to Kevin Durant in the finals, and then the Klay Thompson injury in Game 6. I mean, the fact that they still had a chance to win that game with 2 seconds to go in that Game 6, despite everything that had happened. I mean, I know that the post-mortem on them is that the dynasty is over, despite what Draymond Green might say.
Right.
But boy, they went down kicking and screaming. You got to give them credit,
Absolutely.
you know, for that. If nothing else, you got to give them credit for that.
Absolutely. And maybe I'm being a little bit, you know, positive for the Warriors right now. I'm not really necessarily a Warriors fan, but doesn't this scenario kind of help them in the long term? Like, because I think now, look. I'm not saying I know anything about Kevin Durant what's going to do going forward the next week or two. He may in fact opt into another year. He might sign a 5-year max with the Warriors now that the injury risk is a lot higher now than it was before the injury. But let's assume that they do that. Does the Warriors, by punting on next year, actually extends the dynasty going forward beyond 2021 and whatnot? Like, assuming that Durant and Klay are back to close to where they were before the injuries. I mean, isn't this kind of like a good thing for the Warriors in a sense, I guess?
I think the problem with this is going to be personalities are going to get hurt here along the way. If you re-sign Kevin Durant, you know, to the max deal, let's say you give him that, even if it was just with the intention of just keeping him on the roster because maybe there's some hurt feelings, maybe there's some guilt there, maybe the front office really did mess up on the Kevin Durant thing a little bit and bringing him back. Okay, how does Draymond Green take that? Because he's the guy who's been waiting for that big contract, right? He's the guy who has kind of always been the background guy. He's the guy that's always faced the slings and arrows of the press, the media, the Golden State fans, because he's hot-headed in this, and he's always been that guy. He's been the cheerleader. And how does he take that if he basically isn't rewarded for this in some way? I mean, I think that's where the problem is. And I hate to bring this up because I know that Steph Curry is this otherworldly type player and he's this and he's that, but now he's got the responsibility now of carrying this team by himself. And he's never been in that position where he's had to carry the team by himself. And is he capable of doing that? I mean, what's the expectation? 41-41? They barely make the playoffs.
I would say maybe a 6 seed in the Western Conference would be the ceiling. Maybe 5 seed in the Western Conference, assuming things go their way.
Right. So, I mean, if they don't get that, okay, then what's the impression then of Steph Curry down the road? What do we think of him down the road? You know, and how much pressure does that put on him now to be that guy? I mean, and I think those are storylines that we're going to talk a lot about, obviously, as we get closer to October, as we get closer to the start of the regular season. But if I'm Steve Kerr right now, I'm just going to say a lot about Steve Kerr and his coaching style. Was he really that great a coach, or did he just have that kind of talent around him?
We're going to find
out soon. That goes to the Phil Jackson argument of years ago. That goes to the Pat Riley argument of years ago. Was it a great coach, or was it just a great bunch of guys? And those are fair questions that I think we're going to find out a lot about Golden State. I do think that the Hindenburg did crash. I do think that this team is going to eventually sort of fall apart a little bit. And that's not a bad thing. You know, dynasties are supposed to fold. They're not all supposed to be like the New England Patriots. They are supposed to finally crash and burn. But the question will be now, with the luster a bit gone off their bandwagon, with the luster gone with the shine off Diamond a little bit, who takes that spot now? Because you can make a case that it's the Lakers, but that front office is a mess.
Oh, God,
you can make a case it's Houston, but that front office and that coaching staff and the Harden-Paul situation is a mess. We don't know what Denver really is. We don't know what the Clippers. Well, we know what the Clippers are. They're garbage. We don't know what Portland is yet. I think there's still this idea that we're just going to hand things over to XYZ team here. And I don't know who's ready to take that mantle yet.
When's the last time you remember having a season, at least going to a year where it's wide open, like this? I can't remember the last time I remember.
Well, I mean, you go back. Ironically, it would be the year that San Antonio won the title. And who was the MVP that year? That would be Kawhi Leonard. So, I mean, how much did everything change And if you look at the Kawhi Leonard situation last year, sitting out the injury, the phantom injury that kept him out the entire season at San Antonio, and he goes to Toronto and dominates.
Yeah,
couldn't you also make the same case that was kind of Anthony Davis? I mean, instead of sitting out the second half of the year, he played, but he was half-assed about it. You knew that. Everyone kind of knew that. And now he takes this one-year deal to go to the Lakers, and now the Lakers don't know what they were doing. Oh, my God, we don't know what we're doing. It's salary cap thing, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't this just ring a lot like Kawhi Leonard last year leaving San Antonio to go to Toronto?
Maybe a little bit, but it is. But at least Toronto had a more stable front office to say, okay, well, this will work. The Lakers.
Well, how stable was it though? They fired their head coach. They had fired Dwayne Casey after being named Coach of the Year, and then they bring in Nick Nurse, who no one had ever heard of before, and then they win a championship. I mean,
I still defend the fact that Casey got screwed though, because Casey, I mean, obviously, look, LeBron was the reason they didn't get past a certain point, but this shouldn't diminish Dwayne Casey's contributions to the Raptors the last 7 seasons. I think. Anyway.
Right. I think when you look at the last 5 or 6 years, I mean, clearly Golden State had everyone's numbers. So I think you got to go back to those last years, with the Spurs, the year they won the championship, and I guess before that the Lakers years, those last couple of years of that Laker era with Kobe. I mean, those are the last years we really saw anything like this. I do want to take a side just for a moment to go to baseball for a moment. I just watched Madison Bumgarner get his ass kicked on national television by the LA Dodgers tonight. I just want to thank Madison Bumgarner for being an absolute bum of a pitcher. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
How far from grace he's fallen the last couple of years? My God.
Well, I mean, let's face it. There's not much on that squad.
True.
I mean,
yeah,
there's not much there. I mean, they're
2015, we're all saying he's probably the best pitcher in baseball, arguably. And now, I mean, maybe obviously it's a situation, but he's not definitely the same dude he was 4 years ago. I'll tell you that right now.
Nope, he's not, and I enjoy every minute of it. So yeah,
of course you do, Dodger Homer.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, this is like, I mean, and I'm scared to death of it, right? I'm scared to death of this because this is clearly our best team. This is the one. We got the pitching. Kershaw's getting the run support. We don't have the Yasiel Puig nonsense to deal with right now. Bellinger's hitting out of his mind. So I'm kind of all in right now, and I'm a little excited about it.
Do you think it's the final chance for the Dodgers to make this happen, or do you think the window's pretty wide open for the next couple of years?
I think this is it. I think this is the year. I mean, because, Kershaw's not the same Kershaw, but he's getting run support, and that's the difference between this year and the last couple. We're giving him runs. He's
gotten screwed the last couple of years.
In the games he lost the last couple of years, in the games he lost the last 2 seasons, he was only getting 2 or 3 runs. We're giving him an average of 6 runs a game now. So that's a big difference.
Very small margin of error. Yeah, I agree.
And I think when you look at the Dodgers, when you look at the rest of the National League West, and so they're not going to win a division this year. San Diego, watch the Padres the next couple of seasons. That team is very good.
Yeah.
The Padres the next couple of seasons, and that's the team that I worry about in the National League West. I'm not worried about the Rockies because the Rockies are frauds every year. Not worried about the Diamondbacks because eventually they find a way to screw up in August and September. But
San Fran's trash,
I would look at the Padres right now as clearly the team that the next couple of years that's going to be the team that's going to be the one to follow.
Now you're a Laker guy too. Also, are you excited about? I mean, you should be excited about AD. I mean, you have to arguably win healthy top 5 player in the league. I mean, you should be excited about Anthony Davis in LA, right? Despite the mess with the salary cap, right?
I could care less about the NBA as far as pro teams are concerned. I don't have a favorite.
You used to be like
NBA. I'm a dynasty guy, so I was always into the Warriors during the last few years. I really was.
Were you into the Heat also?
But how do you say again?
Were you into the Heat also before that? The Heat?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
No, were you into the Heat also for those 4 years? The Heat dynasty?
I mean, I'm just not a LeBron guy. I'm just not. I don't care. I get it. He's a great player. He is. There's no question of that. But it's this thing that if you're not a LeBron guy, then you're bad person or something. Like, I kept having to have all these arguments every year. Oh, well, if you don't think LeBron's the greatest player in the history of all time, then you must not know anything. No, it's just that I'm older than you, and I'm able to remember clips as opposed to being prodded into looking them up on YouTube. That's all.
Careful, you're showing your age. Just saying. I'm just saying.
I'm gonna be 50 next year. Do I really?
Oh,
I mean,
my God.
Am I? I know, right?
I'll be 40 next year, so I mean, I'm 10 years behind you. You know,
I'm able to remember when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar dominated the game. I'm able to remember those first 5 or 6 years with Michael Jordan. I'm able to look up clips on YouTube and remember and look up guys like Oscar Robertson and what they did for the game. So I get it. Don't get me wrong. He is one of the greatest of all time. There's no question. But this argument, this ideology that if I don't think he's the greatest of all time, I'm an idiot. No, I'm older than you. That's all it is.
You really are older than me. In 10 years.
And I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly okay with that. I mean, I think you have to have. I think every sports fan has to have that perspective. And it's a line from a song. It's a line from a song by Paul Simon. It goes, "Every generation throws a hero up the pop chart," and that's what this is. That's what LeBron James is. He's this generation's hero. And maybe the next generation will be Giannis, whose last name I won't even try and pronounce. Maybe the next generation will be Zion Williamson. I don't know, but I'm just not so willing to just walk into the argument of LeBron's the greatest ever. Period. I mean, I'm sorry. Look up, go to YouTube, and the internet exists for a reason. Look it up.
Absolutely. Speaking of age and whatnot, not to be ageist, of course, but when did you get into wrestling? What year would you say you got into wrestling?
It's funny, I was having this conversation with my girlfriend earlier tonight and her daughter's 12, so, she likes pro wrestling now. And I was trying to, explain to her that pro wrestling today basically sucks. But I got into wrestling. I was actually recalling the first time I remember getting really, really angry at a story in pro wrestling. It's 1982. I'm watching one of those old Saturday morning shows that were just an hour long, on whatever UHF channel they happened to be on at the time. And Hulk Hogan was tag teaming in a match with Paul Orndorff, and Paul Orndorff backstabs him in the middle of the ring. And I remember just being pissed. I remember oh my God, I hate Paul Orndorff now. And the very next year would be Paul Orndorff and Rowdy Roddy Piper versus Hulk Hogan and Mr. T at the very first WrestleMania.
85, right?
I didn't know at the time what was really happening. I didn't understand what WrestleMania was or anything like that. I was 12. But I just remember that was my first moment of really getting into pro wrestling.
So you basically got into wrestling in the Hulkamania era.
Yeah, right around the same time. I mean, and it was sort of by accident. I didn't care much for it early on, and then I just remember the Hulk Hogan thing, and then everything just blew up. Then the Cyndi Lauper thing blows up, and Rock and Wrestling, and Roddy Piper, and all that. So yeah, I just walked in on it at the right time.
And you never stopped? You just continued all the way up to today, or you went through phases and stuff?
I went through phases. I really stopped. I kind of stopped when I was in college, and then you get a job, so I kind of stopped for a while, I guess.
Kind of important.
Right. I did important things, made money and stuff like that. So I sort of stepped away from it for a while, but then I got back into it, and it's a male soap opera. Okay, so full disclosure, and I think you and I have talked about this. I'm a fan of soap operas. Always was, ever since I was a child. I grew up with All My Children and One Life to Live in General Hospital. I grew up with this. This is a male soap opera. So you can walk right back into pro wrestling and be like, oh, okay, that guy's still a scumbag. That guy's also still a scumbag. And you're cool with that because the people are who you always thought they were.
What's your favorite era?
Wow. I guess I enjoyed the Attitude Era. I did. I was a Triple H fanatic.
You were? Really?
I was. I was a total. I bought right into Triple H.
He fits. He
full
fits your personality.
Full disclosure: when I go to the gym every day, one of the songs on my gym playlist is "The Game," the Triple H entrance.
The Motorhead version.
Which one? The Motorhead one. Yeah.
Oh, of course. Rest in peace, Lemmy. Come on now.
But I mean, that was always that to me. The Triple H, Shawn Michaels, D-Generation X. I bought right into that. I was such a honk for that.
I was too. Like I obviously favorite Hulkamania era because I'm a Hogan Savage honk. Mega Powers, obviously.
Right.
But my God, the Attitude Era was amazing. Like I just told you, I think I might have told you this before our last podcast back in March that I had started and embarked on a binge on 1997, and I watched every Raw and pay-per-view in order. And I'm almost done with them. I'm in December now of 97. And to me, 97 is the most fascinating year in the history of the business, especially WWE.
Okay, so kind of refresh me. Stone Cold, Undertaker.
This is Austin's push. This is arguably Bret Hart's best year. This is also the year he got screwed by Vince in Montreal.
Okay, right.
DX was born that year. This is the genesis. This is basically the genesis of the Attitude Era.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, and that was kind of when I got back into it a little bit.
I did too, right?
It was kind of when I got back into it because there were those early 90s where I was like, I have stuff to do, so I just didn't get into it too much. And then the late 90s, I sort of got back into it.
Me too. I think once Hogan left the WWF in '93, I stopped for a couple of years. I tried to watch a little bit when Shawn was champion. I toed the line a little bit once Austin, The Rock, and Attitude came around. Actually, to be honest with you, what happened is I followed Hogan to WCW. So I became a WCW honk because my philosophy was I'm a Hogan disciple.
Oh, who didn't love the NWO? I mean, who did? I mean, even if you were a Hogan fanatic when he was a good guy, right? When he was the face of the company, then he goes because you always wanted him to be the heel for a little while just to see what it would be like, right? And then you see it and you're like, oh my God, this is so cool.
It was so weird. It was so weird, but you know what? I stayed with him. He was still my favorite, even when he did that. Okay, well, he has a reason. I'm gonna follow you. Yeah, I'm 16 years old at the time. Who cares?
Well, no, and I think that's also I think that's why, for me, and unfortunately, because the WWE is marketed in such a way now, right? Because they're so involved in all these community projects and the Make-A-Wish Foundation and the breast cancer stuff.
And the stock market, and they went public also, yep.
You can't right, but you can't make John Cena a heel now. Because John Cena can't go out there on national television and tell every fan to go to hell while also doing Make-A-Wish Foundation stuff. So he can't. So as much as we all want to see it, I desperately want to see John Cena as a heel one day, he can't. Because he can't go out there and kiss babies and do kids movies while being a heel. He just can't do it.
I don't know, man. I full disclosure, I stopped watching after 2002. At the end, by the Hogan Rock Icon versus Icon matchup, pretty much a month after that, I stopped watching. Not because I wanted to, just because again, I was in the same position you were at 10 years before that. I grew up. I was 22 years old. I had jobs. I was dating chicks, and I was in a band also back then too. So I didn't watch a lot of TV then. So, this is the reason I want to talk about this today, especially because you mentioned earlier at the top of the segment that you're not a fan of the product today. Well, last week was the first time in literally 17 years that I actually watched Raw and SmackDown in real time. Like actually watching it now as a person watching in the moment, as opposed to watching it 10 years before that or 20 years before that. And I gotta say, it is definitely. This is what I will say. I do understand why people don't like the product anymore. I do understand that, but I will say this much: that the in-ring product is actually much better across the board than it was even with the Attitude Era and even with the Hulkamania era and whatnot. That I will say. But the personalities, there's lack of charisma. I mean, you can pick up a couple guys who are pretty decent, but for the most part, I see why people don't like it anymore.
I think part of it is, our taste change as fans. What we want to see changes, and that's okay. It's the same thing with any sport. I get frustrated when I hear about changes to baseball. I get frustrated when I hear about changes to football. It's like any sport. We don't want our sports to change, but unfortunately, sports change. People change. Personalities change. The way we digest sports, the way we want to digest sports changes. That's not a bad thing. That's just evolution more than anything else. But to me, what bothers me about the product is it's still reliant very much on the old names. If I have to see one more Undertaker match, I'm going to lose my mind.
Oh my God! Did you see the Goldberg match against him a couple weeks ago? Oh my God!
Yeah, he's 60 years old. I mean,
why are they
I'm
doing
sorry.
This?
I saw Mickey Rourke do the wrestler thing in the movie. It was dreadful. I don't want to see that.
I agree with you 100%. I agree with 100%.
So I think, and unfortunately, the young guys, I'm not into the charismatic flying through the air stuff. I'm just not into that. You know, the guy who can do a triple axel in midair or something like that. That doesn't really interest me that much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or the guy who does the loop-de-loop in the world in the middle of the air, and everyone takes pictures of it, and then eventually his spine breaks in the middle of the match, and you never see him again. Like, I'm just not interested in that. So I get fascinated by how we create characters. What is it? What's the guy's name? The Bray Wyatt guy.
Yeah.
Like, I loved him.
Mm-hmm.
And now Bray Wyatt is like, he was doing like some mock kids show, and now he's crazy. And I'm like, that's beautiful. I love that.
So you do watch it still, right? Even though you're not really a fan of the product.
I don't watch it like live. I didn't watch like Monday night. I had company over, so I didn't watch Monday night, but I taped it, so I watched it like last night.
Are you one of those that skips through, like, you'll fast forward through matches and stuff?
Oh God, yeah. If I see a match coming up, and for all of your female listeners, please don't take offense to this. The women wrestlers today are dreadful and they're impossible to watch. I'm sorry, they just are.
They are better than what we had before, though. I will say that.
I mean, well, I think maybe I just got a little bit. I think maybe I get it that Ronda Rousey wasn't popular, but you know what? Ronda Rousey was the best athlete they've had there in a long time, and she didn't have the personality. She didn't have this. She didn't have that. Whatever. But boy, she was good at what she did. I mean, she was.
What's your thoughts on the 24/7 belt? I think it's kind of cool, actually. Originally, I saw it, I was like, well, this is kind of weird, and the belt looked stupid. But looking at the way it's played out so far, and the social media impact of it too, kind of like it.
The thing that bothers me, I guess, about all these little gimmicks they do.
Yeah.
You know what the WWE did really well back in the day? The 2-hour show. What show did you enjoy more? Monday Night Raw or Tuesday Night SmackDown?
So far through 2 weeks, I have to say SmackDown is better.
Okay, why? Because it's 1 hour less of garbage.
Yeah.
They don't throw in all the stupid gimmicks. They don't throw in the silly promos and stuff like that. When Raw was 2 hours, ironically, during that 90s Attitude Era, it was a better show. It was a better product.
It used to be an hour. It's
3 hours.
Remember, it used to be an hour? It used to be an hour before.
They didn't go to 3 hours until about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I know. It's stupid.
So, and I think that's part of the problem is we've now thrown in all these silly gimmicks, and we've thrown in all these silly matches and all these silly, contingencies and stuff like that. If Raw went back to 2 hours, the product improves exponentially.
I agree, 100% agree with you. I think oversaturation is the problem. Also, yep. I think it's cool that they're going to put SmackDown back on Fridays in the fall, because I think having SmackDown and Raw together back-to-back days is just overkill.
It is a little overkill. They
don't do house. Do they still do house shows though? Is house show still a thing?
Not as many. Not nearly as many. My goal now is to sort of show my girlfriend's 12-year-old daughter like old matches now. Like I want her to get into the old school wrestling because she's a fan of the new guys, of the new kids on the block. She's a fan of all the new wrestlers. So I think this weekend we're going to sit her down and we're going to watch the Andre the Giant documentary. We're going to watch the old school wrestling matches and kind of do what you're doing a little bit, which is go back and watch these old matches. Like I want her to know what D-Generation X was. I want her to see, how that started. I want her to understand, the dynamic between Triple H and Stephanie McMahon.
But also, my suggestion, if you want to show her great storytelling, shore the entire Mega Powers storyline that lasted 2 years.
Oh, absolutely. How the Mega Powers came and how they were created and how they dissolved.
Yep.
Because that's a great story. Because the Mega Powers thing, you clearly took two completely different personalities on their own stratospheres and managed to put them together. And then to top that off, then the Ultimate Warrior storyline, which was again even more insane.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And then unfortunately his demise and the Sting storyline. The Sting storyline is great from back in the day.
Absolutely. Your thoughts on AEW? Did you see the
pay-per-view? Haven't watched any of it yet. I'm glad that there's something new out there. I hope it works. I hope eventually CM Punk makes his return because clearly he doesn't belong in an octagon with anybody. and if CM Punk comes back to it, I'm in. I'll probably watch because CM Punk, whether you liked him as a wrestler or not, whether you thought he was a great wrestler or not, he sold WWE. He was WWE for a couple of years there. He was great on the mic. He was a great in-ring performer. He was a great announcer. He had everything that WWE wanted, and unfortunately, they kind of pissed it away. And I get what he was trying to do. It didn't work out very well going to UFC. But hopefully he goes back into the wrestling thing. And if he finds his way back to the WWE ring, guarantee you, WWE goes back on top again without any issue. But for the time being, maybe he goes to AEW for a little while, helps them get started, gets them off the mat a little bit, and then we'll see what happens. But I'd love to see him back there.
Yeah, we need competition now. We do. I think CM Punk. I have a feeling CM Punk will be back in wrestling within the next year, definitely. Okay. 25 years it's been since OJ. This week is actually the OJ Simpson anniversary. You and I actually touched on this a few times on the story of OJ. I think a couple of years ago on this podcast and even on your radio show when they had the couple of the specials that came out. It was the documentary on ESPN and then, of course, the American Story on Fox. And we discussed it on this platform on your show as well. This week is 25 years since the chase, and of course the all the drama ensued from then to the next year to the trial and whatnot. Where were you 25 years ago when the chase happened? Now I know where I was. I was 14 years old watching Game 5 of the Knicks and Rockets, and I got pissed off because they interrupted my damn game for this damn Bronco. Now, granted, I know who OJ was. Of course, I was 14. I was old enough to know. I know my history. But I remember being so fascinated by this whole thing. As a kid. Where were you when this whole thing unfolded?
So it was a Friday. I was at Hollywood Park. I was covering races for the Pasadena Star-News. South Bay Daily Breeze. Excuse me. I was working for the South Bay Daily Breeze out in Torrance, California. Hollywood Park was about 15 minutes away, and it was night racing on Friday nights at Hollywood Park. Earlier in the day, I had watched the New York Rangers parade after winning the Stanley Cup final.
Hell yeah. Great
earlier
by
that
the way. I'm a Ranger fan.
What's that?
I'm a Ranger fan.
Okay, there you go. So ding on that one. Then later on in the morning, I watched Arnold Palmer take his final tee shot in his final U.S. Open in 1994. And then later in the day, I got to watch live my first ever World Cup match that took place in the United States, in Los Angeles, that same day. So it was a big sports day, right? I mean, it was already kind of this incredible day of sports. So then it's the NBA Finals, and what a great series it had been already. Houston and the Knicks, two great stories right here. I was downstairs in the grandstand talking to some friends. The game was just getting started. Now, bear in mind, we had known for several hours that OJ wasn't turning himself in, right? We knew that about noon that day that there was an issue. They had gone to his house to try and get him. He wasn't there. So, and this was all there was in Los Angeles. Understand, LA was consumed by this story, especially me. I mean, not just especially, but I'm very much involved in it. I didn't have C-Guy. So I'm like, dude, you're killing us here, So, like, what's going on here? And then, like you said, you're watching the game. You're watching Game 5 coverage. And all of a sudden, like, one of the channels switches over. and we're looking around, we're like looking at different TVs. Now, understand also, where I'm at in Hollywood Park is 15 minutes away from the freeway that he's on.
The 405,
we're
right?
The 405 freeway. We're 15 minutes away from it.
Mm-hmm.
We start hearing sirens. We're hearing about roads being blocked off on Prairie Avenue and Century Avenue, which is right where Hollywood Park is, because they don't know where he's going. They don't have the slightest idea where he's going. Suddenly we start seeing every channel changing. Bob Costas is throwing it to NBC News. And then you've got ABC News switching over and CBS News switching over. And, I mean, understand that this is well before anyone ever tweeted anything. So we didn't have that. So we're reliant just on the news broadcast of this. And, of course, we're in a big racetrack, so the TV sound is turned down. And we're like begging someone, turn the damn volume up. We don't know what's going on here. So finally we get to one of the areas of Hollywood Park, and I threw a $5 bill to someone, like, just turn the volume up so we know what the hell's going on. They turn it up, and then they start saying, this is OJ, he's in a car without cowlings, blah, blah, blah.
AC Collins, right.
And there's this low-speed chase going up. The best moment of it all was after the chase had ended and they wound up at OJ's mother's house. We're flipping channels and we're over on ABC, and Sam Donaldson is anchoring. I'm sorry, it was Sam Donaldson.
It was Sam Donaldson.
He was anchoring the. What's that?
No, it was Sam Donaldson. You're correct.
Sam Donaldson is anchoring the broadcast on ABC, and they go to a phone call. And this is one of the best moments ever. They go to a phone call, and it's a guy saying that he can see OJ in his car with a gun to his head, and he looks scared. And right at the end of the phone call, he drops in the words, Baba Booey. It's a prank call from a Howard Stern listener, and it gets on national television. That was the best moment ever of the whole thing, because here's this drama going on, and then all of a sudden, boom, we're just gonna tear into, we're gonna throw a Baba Booey reference into it just to make it 1,000 times worse. It was fascinating to me. So that's where I was, but. And, now 25 years later, we remembered that whole thing, and on the same day we're remembering it, I find out that OJ Simpson has a new Twitter account, and I'm so glad. Like, I couldn't be happier that he's got a Twitter account. We're in the dog days of sports talk radio right now. There's no NFL news.
No.
Baseball is the only thing really going on, because honestly, nobody gives a rat's ass about the Women's World Cup. Hockey's over, basketball's over, so there's nothing going on. Thank God for OJ Simpson and the real OJ32 Twitter account, because this is radio gold for someone like me.
He's got getting even to do.
I mean, he's got to do my show. He has to. He owes it to me. I'm giving him free publicity. He's got 770,000 Twitter followers. How frightening is that?
That's crazy.
He's going to have 10 times that many before the regular season starts, because he's offering up free fantasy football advice. Are you kidding me?
And people are going to check in and actually use it. I'm telling you, people are that insane.
Absolutely, they are. Now, for the record, I do want to throw out one OJ joke, if I may.
Go ahead.
On his first non-confrontational, non-creepy Twitter post, he talks about fantasy football, and he talks about how he's not sure who he should go get as the number one pick in his fantasy football league. Should he get Patrick Mahomes, or should he get Baker Mayfield? Now, Baker Mayfield is a Cleveland Brown. His ex-wife, who he is accused of murdering and was found not guilty of, thank you, her name was Nicole Brown.
Oh, no.
So my joke was, yes, you know where this is going, hey, OJ, that's a really good pick. This wouldn't be the first time you took a stab at a Brown.
Oh, my God. For the record, I do follow him. I know people are saying, well, if you follow him.
I follow him. I was one of the first. I jumped right in. I'm like, I'm following this. This is going to be, this is radio gold.
There are people saying that you shouldn't follow him, a murderer. Like, how about you do what the fuck you want, and I do what the fuck I want? How about you do your life, and I do what I want?
No, but here's the better argument. I'm sorry. The American, the federal judicial system says he's not guilty. I'm a journalist. I'm that guy. I am that guy in the room who will argue he's not a murderer. He was found not guilty. Now, that doesn't mean innocent.
Right.
That means not guilty. And I'm sorry, but as a journalist, he's not guilty.
Now, are you of the opinion that you think he did the crimes?
I'm of the opinion he was involved. I don't think he was alone. I'm of the opinion he was there. He was involved. I think Jason, his son, was there.
Yeah, you know, that angle always comes up about his son Jason, like, being involved, and somehow I think he covered for his son. I don't know.
Wouldn't you? Well, I mean, okay. You have 2 kids. Would you cover for your kid? Of course you would. Of course. Would your kid cover? No, let me ask. Would your kid cover for you? You bet your ass you would.
They're too young right now to tell me. They're too young.
Okay. Well, okay. Should you find yourself in that position where you're thinking about murdering your ex-wife, you give me a call. We'll have that conversation. Hopefully that never happened.
My 6-year-old rats out on me to my wife when I take a cookie that I shouldn't have taken that day. So, I mean.
Okay. Good for the kid, you know. Mom's taught him well. No.
Yep.
But I mean, look, I'm not deluded enough to think that he didn't have something to do with it. I'm not deluded enough to think because he's found not guilty, therefore he didn't do it. I believe he had something to do with it. I believe he had a lot to do with it. I believe he's dying to tell everyone that he has something to do with it. But he won't make that admission until that last nanosecond before he stops breathing and he says, "Oh yeah, I did it," and then flatline. That's how that's going to go down.
Well, I'll tell you what, OJ is so fascinating. It's funny, my wife didn't really get it, because my wife is like 7 years older and younger than me, so she didn't really understand the whole OJ thing really in detail until a couple of years ago when I had to explain to her how the impact of the trial and the chase and all that, and then she got it. I remember her watching the documentary, the 5-part documentary with me a couple of years ago, which, by the way, probably the best documentary I ever watched in my entire life. The way it was put together by was it Ezra what his name is, Ezra Edelman, what his name is?
Yeah. And the FX show was amazing. The FX show was brilliant.
Oh, absolutely. You and I discussed it on the show a couple years ago. We discussed it.
Right. How many other shows do you get to watch John Travolta, and Cuba Gooding Jr., as those characters? I mean, they were brilliant in those roles.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, how often do you get to see Ross from Friends play an asshole, right?
Yeah. I know.
For the record, let that be for the record. That's the first time I think I've ever actually used the word asshole on your podcast.
It's okay. I try to get you to curse this podcast. You won't do it, so I'll do it for you. By the way, were you a fan of Friends back in the day?
No, I never watched Friends at all. I just knew he was on the show.
Okay.
I was a Seinfeld guy. I was never a Friends guy. Never got into that. Never got into like Full House or any of those things. I'm very picky about my TV.
We know this. We know this, Steve. We know this.
I'm very particular about my television. Trust me.
Which now leads to our next, as we do every time we check in, whether it's on your show, on this podcast, TV binges, because you and I are big time bingers, and we definitely love the pop culture at all. What shows we last spoke, I think, in March. So, what shows since March have you been watching or going back to watching? What's on the tube these days for you, Mr. Bortstein?
I'm ashamed to admit I'm a little scared of getting into a binge watch right now because of how Game of Thrones ended. I'm a little leery right now.
Oh, well, stop right there. So, Thrones season 8, were you one of those that hated it?
Okay, so my theory is this, and for the record, I loved how The Sopranos ended. I did. Mm-hmm. I loved how The Sopranos ended.
Right.
I know there are people out there who hated it. I loved it. The end of a series is supposed to accomplish two things. A, it is supposed to remain true to how the show was always done. Two, it is supposed to give me the idea that some of these characters, especially the ones who you come to know and love or know and hate, go on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sopranos did both. Sopranos was always true. The Sopranos' final episodes was always true to the show. It was exactly like the show was always done.
Right.
And the finale gives you that sense of You don't know what happens to Tony Soprano. The door opens to the diner, close up on Tony, fade to black. Perfect. I loved that. Season 8 accomplished one of those two things. It gave me the idea that Arya Stark goes on. It gave me the idea that Jon Snow goes on. It gave me the idea that Sansa goes on. But it was horribly put together. Oh my God.
So rushed.
It was thrown together at the last minute, with the exception of the two battle shows, which were brilliant, but the rest of it was a train wreck. Like, all of a sudden, the Master of Whispers, all of a sudden, he's like Dr. Phil, and he can't keep his mouth shut for 5 seconds. Now, all of a sudden, everyone, Daenerys turns into a lunatic, which you might have been able to foretell from the very beginning, right? You probably could have seen that. Mm-hmm. But they spent so much time with her, being this changed person. All of a sudden, the White Walkers are idiots. They just walk right into this whole thing. They didn't see it coming. Bran, the whole time, I knew he was going to wind up on the throne. Of course he was going to wind up on the throne. Why? Because he kept himself out of everything. Because he always managed to not be anywhere near anything when anything important was going on. And so naturally, he's the one who gets he gets the throne. Okay, but it was so thrown together. Like, it was haphazard and slipshod, and there was no continuity to it. So it failed in every way, with the exception of episode, 3?
Yeah.
With the great battle show. That was epic. You couldn't see half of it because it was dark, but that's fine. That's what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah. A lot of squinting going on in episode 3.
Everything about the last couple of shows, to me, just violated everything that had gone into the planning and gone into the constant bickering. And I loved that about the show the first 7 seasons. Season 8 just seemed really slipshod.
I felt the season was rushed. Like, just when Daenerys gets, destroys King's Landing, we don't even get time to adjust to her being the queen, and she's dead within the first 10, 15 minutes of the next episode. Like, it's
right.
Like, the genius of Thrones for years has been about how organized, how spread out the show is. And season 8 was like, okay, let's get it out of the way. Let's just get the shit over with. That's how I felt. Yeah. I felt the writers and HBO itself wanted to get this show out of the way, because obviously it's the end of it. Let's get this shit out of the way and move on to other projects.
Right. And that's why it failed in one of the two things that I need from a series finale. It accomplished the one of, we know that these characters are going to go on, and whatever you want them to go on as, whether you want Arya to go on, whatever you want her to go on as being, she's going to go on to do that. You get to decide. It's like choose your own adventure, right? And that was the beauty of The Sopranos, was you get to choose. Was the door opening at the diner the end of the Soprano family, or was it just another day? That's the beauty of it. That's what they did well. But as far as how we got there, the process of how we got there was charitable. So, right. To that point, I've been a little reluctant on jumping on, like, brand new shows. I've sort of stayed true to the ones that I was into before. I've stayed true to Ozark. I've stayed true to Ozark, which is brilliant. I believe it's Netflix? Yes, it's Netflix.
It's on the list, too. It's on the list.
Yeah, Ozark is brilliant. I'm very much excited about the next season of Mindhunters when that comes out. I'm really into Handmaid's Tale. I didn't get into it originally, but then I sort of picked up on it. Handmaid's Tale is weird and disturbing and brilliant.
My wife, I watched the first 3 episodes of that, which I did like it initially. She could too without me, and then she stopped. She said it was too much for her. It was too much.
Yeah, it is disturbing. It is. It's a disturbing show. But that's why I like it, because I'm a disturbed person. So I'm okay with that.
That is correct.
for the record, I am emotionally vacant. I have no soul.
At least you're honest about with yourself,
Oh, I'm okay with it. I think most people who get to know me realize that I'm probably soulless. But I'm still that person also, and you won't be surprised at this at all. I still watch old episodes of The Newsroom. I do. I go back. If I need a little inspiration, I'll throw on an old episode of The Newsroom.
Based on based on your social media, I would say that's your all-time favorite show, right? Based on your social media.
Oh God, yes. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's and for those of your listeners who have never watched it before, or who think I'm not going to like it because it's pretentious, or I'm not going to like it because I don't care about people who just stand around and talk all day. Let me just stop you from thinking that for a moment. Expand your horizons a little bit. It is the greatest single 3 seasons of television that were ever written, produced, acted, directed,
I loved
anything.
it. I loved it.
For the simple fact that if you think today's politics, and we don't need to get into politics.
No.
But if you think today's politics is bizarre, if you think today's political noise and the news around it is crazy and no one could have seen it coming, Aaron Sorkin saw it 5 years ago.
Yep. Sure
he
did.
saw it in that show 7 years ago. And it's amazing because watching it now, even after it's been off the air for 4 years, watching it now, you walk away from it thinking, oh my God, what would they do on that show with today's news headlines?
Mm-hmm.
How would that show play today? Because it would be amazing today.
I agree with 100%. I enjoyed this show. It's definitely one of my favorites. So let me tell you what my binge has been lately. Well, first I'm going to ask you, did you watch Chernobyl, the miniseries on HBO?
Chernobyl?
Yeah.
I kind of know how it ends. So I'm kind of like, no. I watched the first couple of episodes, and it's disturbing, and it's supposed to be disturbing, and I get it. But I guess I'm just not, I don't know, maybe, like, I know how the story played out. Okay, there was a nuclear reactor explosion and people died. How much more do I really need?
I think really more than anything else, and especially the last episode tells you this, the impact it had, not just of what happened physically and obviously the results of being exposed to radiation, all that, but the political back story of it too, which actually is more in focus in episodes 4 and 5.
Right.
You know, even Gorbachev said publicly, and I agree with him that this event pretty much marked the beginning of the end of the USSR.
Oh, absolutely it did. Absolutely. There was already enough political pressure on them, excuse me, from most of the Western world to begin with, but then that changed it. Because, you know, they were so, we don't need your help, we don't need your help, oh God, we need your help. And that was the end. I mean, that was literally what brought down socialism in Russia. So, it was well done, I think, in that sense, but I was kind of emotionless about it, whatever, like I just watched it. I got into some documentaries. There was one documentary, there was a 4-part thing called Evil Genius. It was a Netflix show about this guy who got caught up in this robbery of a bank, and he had this bomb strapped to him, and the bomb blew up and he died, and the people that were involved in it was well done. And then there was another one, I forget the name, I want to say, I forget, it was Wild Country, Wild West Country, something like that. Mm-hmm. It was about this small rural town in Oregon that got taken over by some crazy Indian, Middle Eastern cult that took over this small town called Antelope, Oregon. And it's fascinating.
Interesting. Okay.
It was a fast Wild West Country or something like that. I forget the exact name of it.
On Netflix.
But check it out because it was fascinating.
Netflix, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I watched. Don't judge me. I watched Big Little Lies.
I watched season 1. I was into it. I haven't yet started season 2.
Pretty good. Really good. Fall back a little bit.
Sharp Object was well done. Sharp Object was dark.
By the way, I fell back a little. Nicole Kidman, fell back in love with her. She's still gorgeous in the 50s. Still gorgeous.
Oh, Nicole Kidman. Look, all you have to do is just say dead calm, and you've got me on Nicole Kidman.
Yes,
that's
amazing.
That goes all the way back to Dead Calm. She can do the worst movies in the world, and most of the ones she's done lately have been. But all I have to do is just go back and watch Dead Calm for 20 minutes, and I'm like, okay, I remember Nicole Kidman.
Absolutely. Dead to Me on Netflix I watched in one day. Not that bad. What else did I watch also? There's a lot of things I watch. I've been watching a lot. Outside my binge of WWE, of course. Can't remember what else I watched. Something else. Well, yeah, and Chernobyl. That's the last week or so, but that's what I binge really. I actually, in the last 2 weeks.
Have you watched Barry? Have you watched that?
That is my wife and I are gonna start that probably next week.
I think you'll like it.
Yeah.
It's kind of dark. It's a very dark show, but really well done.
Yeah.
And I have such a great respect now for that actor, Hader. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's incredible. Mm-hmm. He's amazing.
Absolutely. No, this is the time of year for me where during the conference finals and finals, this is the time of year where I really start to get into my binging modes of TV. I slacked last couple of years, but my wife and I are like just like plowing through shows like nothing else now. She started Black Mirror, she hated it. So I told her to sidebar. I told her to sidebar that show for a little bit because if you don't want to watch it, we'll put it to the side for now. We're just finding shows that we're either behind on or shows that people are strongly suggesting us to watch. So we're going through it like nothing, like butter.
Well, and that goes back to there's nothing going on right now, right? The NFL's in a dead period. The NBA finals are done.
Well, that
the
and then
NHL
there's so much content
done, and nobody cares about soccer.
And it's so much content too. You know what I mean? That's the thing.
Right. There's so much out there, so now you have all this free time.
Right.
Until training camps open up. Until training camps open up, there's all this free time.
Absolutely. Last thing here, before you go. Tool's new album's out in August, late August. We discussed August 30th, which means we're 71 days away. No, I'm not really counting. Is that a Friday?
Yes.
Which means
I have already taken the Thursday. I have taken the Thursday off to prepare for the midnight release on Friday, August 30th. I'm taking the Friday off of work
to listen to it,
and that leads into the Labor Day weekend. And I'm taking the Tuesday after Labor Day off, so it gives me Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 4 days to dissect that album with my noise-canceling headphones. No one's allowed near my house. No one talks to me for 4 days, and I just dissect every note.
Oh, you're one of those. I usually the same way.
I waited 13 years for this damn thing. You're damn right, I'm one of those people.
I miss these days, man. When records came out, there were events. Tool might be one of the last ones left now because they don't put out records often.
And to be fair, I'm nervous. I am. I'm at that phase now where I'm kind of expecting it to be I hope it's not. I hope it lives up to every amazing expectation. I hope it does. I'm not counting on it being that. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing because look, bands tend to slow down. Bands tend to not be great after a certain amount of albums. I hope this is it. I will see them in concert. I don't care. I have 3 shows to go to the magic number of 25 Tool shows.
Wow.
So I will go see 3. Yeah, I know. That's how I'm obsessed. I've been obsessed with them since college. I mean, it's been that long. So that's how old I am. But, it'll be 3 more shows to 25. I'd like 25 to be at Red Rocks. So we'll see how the tour plays out. But yeah, it's been 13 years and that's shocking to me. And one of the cool things about Tool, and I think any band, you're a Metallica fan, so you can relate to this a little bit.
Yeah.
Songs that were on the last Tool album, 10,000 Days. You hear them when the album comes out, and they sound one way, and then you hear them now, and they sound completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with every album they've done. Songs that I had a certain personal attachment to, whether it was on Anima or whether it was on Undertow,
mm-hmm.
or whether it was on or whether it was on 10,000 Days. Those songs had a very specific meaning when they came out. And now, years later, whether it's Lateralis, whether it's Anima, they mean something different because we're older too, just like Maynard. You know, one of the big complaints I always heard about 10,000 Days was that, it wasn't angry enough. Well, yeah, Maynard's grown up now. He's an adult. He's a parent. He's a husband. He's a parent. He's got a winery for crying out loud. He's a different person. If your criteria for what makes a great album number 5 as opposed to what made a great album number 1 is that they remain the same, well, then by that rationale, that means that Maynard's had absolutely nothing happen to him for the last 25 years.
And no growth.
Bullshit.
No growth. Yeah.
No growth. No, yeah. I mean, that's a load of shit. You can't have that.
I agree.
So naturally, these guys are going to change.
Absolutely.
So I expect them to change.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hopeful that whatever changes have happened to Maynard, whatever changes have happened to Adam and Justin and Danny, whatever changes have happened to them over the last 13 years, we get to hear about them. We get to know what they sound like. We get to feel what those changes are, and I'm sort of okay with that.
Well, it's okay to I think it's smart to actually lower expectations because, like, you know, if you think it's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, and then you hear the records like, oh, what the hell is this shit? You know, I can understand why you being let down. Do other Maynard releases, like what Perfect Circle, for example, do they stimulate you the same way?
Okay, so like I'm a big Perfect Circle fan, always was, and if you have not yet heard the last album that Perfect Circle did called "Eat the Elephant,"
mm-hmm.
It is outstanding how good that album is. It is literally one of my favorite albums of all time. It really is. It is beautiful. It is haunting. It is dark. It's disturbing. There's songs on it that just blow you away. It is a fantastic album. Originally, I was not a big fan of Pucifer when they first came out, but now their last couple of albums have been extraordinary. And I think part of it is, yes, we've been lacking Tool material. So I'm going to find anything I can listen to of Maynard, and I'm going to be sort of okay with it. But also, I've enjoyed watching the growth. I've enjoyed watching him mature, because we've matured along with him, right? We as adults have changed. And I'm okay with him changing. I'm okay with all these people going through these things. I'm okay with them being different people than they were before. So I want these celebrities to be different. I've always made the argument that, and this applies to sports too, and you can make this argument as it relates to really anything. If you're expecting your favorite athlete, your favorite celebrity, your favorite musician to be exactly like a character on a video game that you turn it off and you turn it on and they do exactly what you tell them to do, well, then you're doing life wrong. That's why I always make the argument about like the athlete that didn't stand for the anthem. Well, because on your video game, your athletes do exactly what you tell them to do. You push a button, they do what you tell them to do. That's why you have fantasy football. You want your athletes to do precisely what you tell them to do, and if they don't do it, you get rid of them. That's not how real life actually works, in any way, shape, or form. So, they're human beings just like you. And if you're not willing to grow, and if you're not willing to expand your horizons, then how on earth can you expect anyone else to do that?
Hey, can't agree with you more, honestly. Can't agree with you more. Steve, thanks for coming on the podcast. Appreciate it. Listen to Steve, of course, every day, Monday to Friday on First Sports, Fox Sports, New Mexico, 1340 AM, 939 FM on iHeartRadio. As always, man.
Download the app to your smartphone or wireless device. I get a quarter every time I say that. So.
And by the way, I expect to read a written review of the album when it comes out.
Oh God! Oh, trust me. The day it comes out, I will go Facebook silent for at least the first 24 hours, and then like every hour, I'll post a song by song review of every song on that album. So yeah, you can count on me being the most critical human being on the planet that week. I mean, it'll be wretched. People will be sick of reading about some whispered lyric on track 7 that I caught, whatever. It's gonna be quite disgusting. I can assure you that. But I'm excited. I'm totally excited about it. I'm very much looking forward to the Tool album. I'm looking forward to the Dodgers winning the World Series this year, knock on wood, and 2019 being the second half of 2019 being pretty exceptional today, and of course tomorrow being the official end of the first half of the year, the summer solstice tomorrow. So there you go. We lead into the second half of 2019 on a good note.
That's right. Again, follow Steve Bortstein on Twitter at Fox 1340 AM. Steve, always a pleasure, man. Love having you on the show. We do it again soon, of course.
Absolutely, can't wait to have you on First Sports. We'll talk some football preseason stuff in the next couple of weeks. Sir.
Definitely, man. All right, buddy. Take care. All right.
You too, my friend. Thank you.
You got it, man. Take care.